Hi, my lovely writing friends. I have been wanting to make a video for some time about starting a book, chapter one. However, I had thought about doing a post and asking people if they'd like to share their first chapters of their books with me, and various things like that. But then I thought that some other people would probably view that with a little bit of suspicion or something. And as I am actually not happy with the chapter one I have just written in one of my own new books, so I'm going to go back and tweak it, I decided we just do a talking head today, and I would include 5 things you should not include in chapter one. Item number 1, do not include your backstory, your character backstory. Now, the reason for this is obvious. Your readers, your potential readers, do not need to know a person's life story to get to know them. Think about it as you would if you were meeting a new friend for the first time. When you meet somebody new, you might find you clearly got something in common, maybe in respect to where you've met, or how you've managed to bump into this person, whether it's doing your daily walks every day, or whether you've met them at the library or the supermarket, or maybe you're part of a group, a special interest group, or things like that. You will realize that you have something in common with that person. And then it's not until over time where little parts of that person and yourself become revealed as you get more comfortable with a person that you start to consider them a genuine friend. So when you're writing your chapter one, this is your introduction to a character, and you do not need their life story thrown at you in one go. Because if you get that, most readers are going to close the book and move away. Sharing a life story is not going to guarantee they're going to care, no matter how angst-driven or heart-rendering you write that scene. They need something else. So do not put that in chapter one. The second thing about starting your new chapter, your first book, is do not jump into mid-conversation. Now, I've talked in the past about how I quite often start the book with a conversation so that we get to see a main character and how they interact with others, and we learn sort of obliquely a bit more about that person and their situation due to conversation. I mean, conversation and action are going to be 2 big things that are going to immediately have your reader questioning, who is this person? Why is this person? What is happening with this person? See, that is creating instant engagement. But the problem is if you drop them in mid-conversation with no context whatsoever, maybe you want your first line of your book to be something really thrilling or eye-catching, like, I didn't kill that person, or something else equally stark. The problem with doing that is, again, we don't know enough about the character to have the context of where that line came from. And unless you're going to build in a whole stack of context in the first chapter, which I've already suggested you should not do, then you're actually shortchanging your reader. You are far better to preclude something, or in fact, with that line, I didn't kill that person. Maybe you're showing the character in their element and they're doing various things or what have you. And then maybe at the end of the chapter, when the readers had a chance to think, oh, okay, this person's a bit of all right, and they get to the end of the chapter and your character gets that phone call and somebody says on the other end of the line, I didn't kill that person. That is a hook to chapter 2. But it does not make a good hook at the beginning of your chapter 1, because we don't know enough about the person saying it to care. So give that a thought. Number 3, my pet peeve. I'm sorry for if authors do this, but unless the weather is a major character in your story, do not start your book with a description of the weather. As a reader, I don't care if it's a fine sunny day by the beach. I don't care if it's a dark and stormy night. I don't care if the wind is chill enough to freeze your balls off. I don't care about the weather. I am not reading the book to get a weather forecast. I am reading the book because I want to learn about the characters. So unless your weather, which can be mentioned through the chapter in little sparse details to show the impact of the cold or the heat or the sun or whatever else, I do not need to read the opening lines of a chapter being something like, it was a hot and sunny day in Port Chalmers or wherever. That is not going to reel your readers in unless the weather has somehow morphed into a character. Readers are nearly always interested in characters. So don't do that. Another thing you should not do is you should not start the book with your character waking up. It is a very tempting ploy, and there have been authors that who do use that. But to put bluntly, as a reader, I do not need to start a book reading that a character woke up annoyed at their alarm clock, or their coffee routine, or the fact that they brush their teeth for 5 minutes, or what. I don't know. No. That is not getting me to learn about my characters, about your characters. Think back to the friend analogy I used at the beginning of this video. When you meet someone, you don't start talking about your morning routine or your ablution bathroom habits or whatever, or how you like your coffee. That is not what makes you interesting as a person. You need to see them doing something. The only time using the waking up on a fresh new morning scenario might work for the beginning of chapter 1. Remember, I'm talking about this is all to do with chapter 1, is maybe if you wrote something like, the arrow hit Calvin's head. No, it would be, the arrow missed Calvin's head by 1 inch 5 minutes before his alarm was due to go off. Now, something like that then might make me think, okay, I want to read a bit more. What the hell? Who was shooting an arrow at this person? Are they really that bad a shot? But then, of course, they had to have been, because if they'd have hit our Calvin in the head, then there wouldn't have been a book, particularly if it happened in chapter 1. But that's probably about the only time you could use waking up as a way to introduce your character to your readers, is if the way they woke up, perhaps they fell out of bed during an earthquake, or perhaps they got slapped around the face by an indignant wife, whatever, it doesn't matter. But unless that waking up routine has been severely changed for whatever reason, I don't want to read about it in chapter 1. That's something else you'd put in a later chapter. And finally, I think I'm at number 5. Finally, do not use chapter 1 as a world building info dump. Now, I'm sure you know what I mean by that term. And there may be a few authors who might think, but I spent all that time. Yeah, there's another video about how stop planning and start writing. Find that. That's up there somewhere. Find that. Go back and read that and watch that. But I don't care how many pages of world building information you've got. I don't care, as a reader, how much time and effort and all your fancy graphs and your beautiful pictures. I think that's really awesome that some authors can do that. But as a reader, when I pick up a book and I want to know if I want to read it, and I open the first page, I do not need to see 5 pages worth of description of the land or the town or whatever else that character is in. Again, unless the world itself is a character, in which case, yeah, that's going to make things awkward for the rest of your book. But anyway, all those beautifully researched and crafted details that you have compiled in readiness for your book do not belong in chapter 1. Your reader, your prospective new reader, is not going to care about your world until they get to know somebody who lives in it. Again, all that beautifully crafted information will be filtered in snippets, dribbled through the story, so that the reader gets more of an awareness of your world, as at the same time they are learning to get to know your character. But if they don't feel some sort of emotion about your character, they are not going to keep reading your book. So whether they hate them, love them, worried about them, they need to care about the character first. So there you go. Just 5 little ways not to start your chapter 1. But if you are interested in seeing me do a breakdown of your chapter 1, or maybe if you want to see some of my chapter 1s, and I will explain the positive and negatives of them, because I make mistake, people. I genuinely do. And I'm more than happy to share them with you if you think you're interested. But for now, we'll leave it at those 5 points. I put out long form content on Mondays and Thursdays. And I've got short videos as well, but we don't care. I'm not a short video person. I just put them out in the hopes that people will watch my long form content. If you did like this enough, thought it might be useful, then please hit the subscribe and the like button. If you think I'm wrong, show me some examples in the comments of an absolutely brilliantly done first few paragraph of a book, of a famous book or something, and let me know why that works. Put that in the comment below. I would love to read them. I really don't mind being proven wrong. But yeah, as I say, any engagement is good engagement for YouTube. I always find that hilarious. But yeah, I am genuinely trying to help people write their first books, particularly people who haven't written before, or perhaps people who used to write a long time ago and are now sitting there in retirement and wondering what to do with their free time. I'm trying to give people confidence to write, to get words on a page, because as a self-published author who has supported herself for 11.5 years doing this, yeah, I think it's a really awesome way to live. So I'm going to go off and get some words down of myself. As I said, that first chapter that I wrote myself last night, I didn't finish till like about 11:30. And quite honestly, I think it's crap. So that's fine. I'm going to go in and change that and make a few tweaks, including one of the characters' names. If I don't resonate with a name, I just can't write it. So yeah, like, subscribe, comment. I've done all the bits. Does that make me a real YouTuber now? I'm sorry. I seriously need to go and make a cup of tea. But in the meantime, my friends, please start writing or keep writing. And until next time, we will see you then. Bye.